you saying, in essence, that Dr. Azikiwe took money?
He was blackmailed by the British to do our bidding. We told Dr. Azikiwe that he could go to prison if an inquiry was carried out into his bank and his financial circumstances. However, we would not want to be vindictive if Dr. Azikiwe was cooperative in helping forward the plans that we had made in the best interests of Nigeria. Dr. Azikiwe had nothing in common with the northern politicians. He loathed the northern politicians. But Dr. Azikiwe went north and did as he was told. And what he was promised was this. The real power, effective power, would be in the hands of the northern emirs. However, it would look great if the president was Dr. Azikiwe and he was given a field marshal's uniform and an admiral's uniform. He asked, please, could he have a row of medals? But they said, well, no, that was a bit difficult, to get the medals. So when the ambassadors started arriving, he was known to be asking people from foreign countries, perhaps they had a medal for his uniform. We thought this was terrible, but it was said that this happened. He was very vain. And for a time, he functioned as first the Governor General, and then when Nigeria became a republic, as the president. But he had no power. And when he did try to tell the army, he said, I'm the field marshal, the army has got to do with this. They said, hey, you're just a ceremonial figure. You have no power. The Prime Minister, Balewa, gives us our orders. So there was a feeling then that there was going to be trouble. And then it was because the Awolowo and the Action Group had become the official opposition. What we British wondered, how could they win another election without the British counting the votes? There could not be another proper run election without us there. We knew what we were doing. We were just helping things along. We were doing what the British do, favouring our friends and looking after our own and repaying favours. We don't call that corruption.
Right. I mean, in essence, what Dr. Azikiwe did, it was forced by the British government to do it.
Yes.
Collecting money from the marketing board then.
Yes.
So if any politician here in the United Kingdom tried to do that,
be in jail.
It will be in jail. So why did the British government refuse to take action?
Because
or comment on
if we nipped it in the bud, because we knew it was happening, it was even happening in, let me be fair, in the West with the Awolowo. They were taking some money. They meant to repay it perhaps, but they were taking money. And I would have said, issue a warning now and say, you've got to behave, because if this is allowed to go on, it'll be a major offence. However, before they actually ran the 1959 election, they needed money for the North and for the NCNC, Dr. Zik, to fight the election. So what they did, my senior officer, Major Bunker, went around, was ordered by the Governor General to go to all the major British firms and international firms, Ford, UAC, Leventis, all these firms, and raise money for a slush fund to enable Chief Okoti Igbo, together with the North, to fight the 1959 elections. The North got most of their money from the native authorities. This was looked on by the British as being okay. This wasn't corrupt because we were friends of the North. And if they tried this in the West or in the East, we might have said this was corruption. but because it happened in the north, the native authorities, public money, was poured into the government party, the NPU. So this obviously was a terrible fiddle. We were discriminating against the southern politicians in favour of these northern emirs. What we saw was that this would not be the first act of treachery. They would have to smash the action group, because the action group was strong, and in a fresh election they would be sure to win. They were pretty honest and regular guys, and a lot of the British quite admired Awolowo for his brain power, and they admired Chief Inahro, who was a bit cheeky and young and spirited, and they were both quite admired, as they were like right-wing Labour people, nothing revolutionary. And so a great deal of money was raised by my senior officer, Major Bunker, before the 1959 election. And this was money put up by United Africa, by Ford, Shell, BP, and my wife, who was the personal assistant to the general manager of BP Nigeria. She's not going to tell you anything because she was a confidential secretary. I can only tell you that we were very well informed on some of the hanky-panky that was going on in Lagos.
Having revealed now that the election of 1959 was rigged, the census figure were cooked, I don't know if you have been following the ongoing in Nigeria today.
Yes, of course.
The last general election,
yes.
The 1979-1980 election, in which Azikwe was the beautiful bride, and
I have to tell you, sir, that I'm not going to comment.
Okay.
I cannot interfere in Nigeria's domestic politics. I'm a historic figure. I do keep up, naturally, because I love Nigeria, and I've kept up with its history of its assassinations and military coups and dictatorships for 50 years. And this has been one of the biggest tragedies in world history, because this potentially was one of the greatest nations on earth. Nigeria was packed with educated, decent people who wanted to serve their country.
Since you lost that job that the government threatened or went behind you to say that you were disloyal to them and you were fired, have you ever worked any other place since?
Have I?
Have you worked in any other company
Yes.
since?
I didn't go to Oxford in the usual way. I came from a very poor family and left school when I was 13 years old. And I served a factory apprenticeship as an engineer, which is very unusual for an Oxford undergraduate. At Oxford also, I trained as a social worker. I'm a fully qualified social worker. So and as a personnel officer too, although the government stopped me working when I returned to this country and I was quite ill, I did a lot of voluntary work from this time on, both in the medical field, in the field of young girls. We also had campaigns on comprehensive schools. So I've kept very busy over the decades, although I have been kept out of employment quite deliberately. And when I did take up work, the government came after me and behaved abominably. And they did the most appalling things. They framed me with money missing. When I worked as a humble postman, after I'd worked as a personnel officer, I delivered the post to the workers who I'd employed. And they forced me out of that. They framed me. And later, when I was working in a labour exchange, they used the foulest methods to get me out of work. They told me they would. They said, the Governor-General said, unless you do what I say, you will never work again. And he offered me this, and it's very big bribes. A knighthood, a post in the Far East, in the Foreign Service, and a large sum of money. And this was confirmed later in Whitehall, and we turned it down.
Thank you very much for your time to answer some of the questions we've posed to you. What would be your advice to the Nigerian audience watching us now?
They have potentially one of the greatest nations on earth. What they have to do is be disciplined. And they've got to unite together and love each other, be kind to each other. Like they are, they're great to their own families. Nobody has nicer families and children than Nigerians. All Nigerians love their own family. They've got to extend that family to include their neighbours and the other peoples in the Federation.
We really appreciate your coming around. All Nigerians here in the United Kingdom and Nigeria who are likely going to watch this interview as well, we want to say thank you very much. We welcome you and we wish you God building as you go back.
Give our love and appreciation to all your peoples.
Thank you
We
very
love
much.
them.
Thank you. Mrs. Carol Smith, we were unable to ask you a question, but we know that you are with us all the way. Thank you very much for coming.
Thank you very much
Thank
indeed
you.
for having us. Thank you.